Hello and welcome to the Grindhouse. I am JC and I'm here tonight with my guest Terry. And we have a few things that we want to talk about. So I'll go ahead and give a little preface. So I haven't actually streamed probably for about a year. And one of the things that really kind of dragged me out back onto YouTube and Twitch, which is this going tonight, is pretty much the OGL issue that's going on with Wizards of the Coast, and I'll get into a little bit more of that in a bit. And Terry and I are going to discuss that. I've also chosen three games. Unfortunately, one of them is an OGL based game. However, and we'll talk about that in a minute, I don't think it should be affected. I hope not. But the other two are not OGL. They are not Wizards of the Coast, and you can pick them up and play them. And there's older editions too that you can play, and it's really good stuff. But I'm JC, the host. Grindhouse Media is my purview, my world out here on the internet and in publishing. Uh, I am a avid gamer, and definitely someone who is pretty angered at what's going on in the industry right now. Publisher for Chapter 13 Press and Solarian Games, and I do a bunch of other things within the gaming industry. So with that said, I am going to go ahead and have Terry introduce himself.
I'm Terry Mixon. I am a professional writer. I write science fiction, and I've been full-time writing for 9 years now. So I guess it's working out for me. I'm an old style gamer. I started gaming 79, 80, 81, somewhere back in there. So I've played a lot of role-playing games over the years.
Awesome. So the first topic at hand is the OGL. So OGL stands for Open Game
Gaming
License.
License.
Yeah, Open Gaming License. Yeah, I do that at work too. Like my job, the area, the department has a acronym that every time I have to introduce myself, like on a Zoom call or something, I'll either forget the acronym or I'll forget what it means, and it's kind of embarrassing. They go, "Oh, well, that stands for something," and sometimes I'll write it down before a meeting because I'm that bad at acronyms. But Open Gaming License. So what ended up happening is when D&D 3.0 and 3.5 were in their heyday, a lot of people were designing for that game system. For example, Mutants and Masterminds is a perfect example of an early adopter of OGL. And there was a lot of smaller companies besides Green Ronin who adopted it and did their own modules and things for D&D. Most of them are great for keeping yourself warm in the fireplace, or putting under those uneven tables because they were completely horrible, but some were actually pretty good. So anyway, people were publishing under this OGL, and the rules had changed on a little bit. To give a prime example of when the rules changed the most for the OGL, there was a book called The Book of Erotic Fantasy that was published towards the tail end of the 3.5 era. What it was supposed to be was a book about running erotic and sexy adventures in your D&D game. It had things on pregnancy, it had things on just sex and BDSM and all these other things that most people still to this day don't really put into their games. Not to say that you shouldn't, but I'm just saying that a lot of people just don't. And honestly, if you ever get a chance to look at the book, it's been out of print. If you try to find a copy of it, it's a few $100 to actually put in your collection. And I am looking for a copy just because I'm a completist when it comes to things like that.
I totally look forward to you putting that into your own games.
Yeah, that would be really great for our Wednesday game. I think that would kill the Wednesday game, but it's the keep on the sexy Borderlands that we're running on Wednesday nights. But it didn't quite come off the way that I think the authors had expected it to. It kind of came off as if a 15-year-old wanted to write a book that they could masturbate to, and they loved hot goth chicks. I mean, that's really, if you look through the book, it's all pictures of naked goth guys and not naked goth women, and various stages of dress up.
I
And
can see where that might concern the copyright holder.
absolutely. And honestly, once Wizards of the Coast actually saw what this book looked like and read the contents, obviously, they changed the OGL to basically have, oh, I think, I can't remember. I think it was like another version of it. Because there was one version that basically said this book um, can be listed as for use with Dungeons and Dragons, and then there was basically that second part of the OGL that was like you could publish whatever you want, but WotC is not going to basically say that they have anything to do with it. I
They
think.
had something other than the OGL, which I don't remember what it was called, and that was the second thing, not the OGL. The second thing is what they documented that in. Was
Yeah.
it
Wow.
SRD? It can't have been the SRD, could it?
Or is the SRD, well, SRD stands for, okay, I'm acronyming again. I am actually going to look this up because, again, this is an
It,
impromptu.
all I can say is it was not the OGL, it was the other thing, whatever that was.
Okay, it does not stand for Social Relief of Distress Grant,
It should.
or Services Reconnaissance Department. Systems Reference Document. There we go.
I think it was version 3.0 of that SRD where they got a little draconian on it.
Yeah, exactly. But because of that, honestly, it was almost a good thing. So I guess we should be thanking the writers of the Book of Erotic Fantasy because of that change in the wording and in the open gaming license, we're actually able to do a lot more with the game system and expand it a lot more. Because initially it was just done so you can publish stuff to go along with Dungeons and Dragons, and then it changed. However, let's move to the next edition of D&D, which was fourth edition.
Yep.
They actually then changed it. So there was still the OGL, but then there was the GSL, I think it was.
Yeah, I think that's it. Maybe it was the GSL that was more restrictive. Maybe
Oh,
that's what I was thinking of.
yeah, the GSL was and that's I think where they want to take the OGL at this point is something locked away and cryptic and things like that. But what ended up happening is with the OGL, a company called Paizo, which used to actually publish Dragon Magazine, which was the house magazine for Wizards of the Coast and D&D at the time, they went off on a venture and created a game called Pathfinder. And Pathfinder was basically 3.75 of D&D. Actually, a very cleaned up version. I enjoyed Pathfinder a lot more than I did D&D 3.5. It had its problems, and I'm not going to go because if I went into what I thought about Pathfinder, we'd be here
Yeah,
for a couple
don't
of hours.
devolve yourself here. Just stay on
Yeah.
target. Stay on
Yes.
target.
So yes, with fourth edition, it got locked down. So it was very hard to publish, do anything with D&D. And then fifth edition came about. I think it was like 2013, 2014. It changed things. It basically realized that, yeah, fourth edition wasn't the best idea. It's a good game. I'm not saying don't go play fourth edition D&D. It's a fun tactical strategy game, but it's not really a role-playing game per se. Anyway, fifth edition came about. OGL changed again. Now I'm going to throw another acronym. Okay, yeah, this is what happens when you stream at the last minute. I'm going to throw another acronym at you, and we're going to call it the OSR. OSR stands for Old School Renaissance, and this was a movement that actually started a lot, well, way before fifth edition did, but it was a smaller group of publishers. One of the originals is Labyrinth Lord. So what it ended up happening is people really wanted to start playing older edition games. However, WotC hadn't yet republished any of the older books, and they were hard to find. And once it started getting popular, it went from like finding a set of books on eBay incredibly cheap to paying $100 per book at one point. It got crazy. So what they ended up doing with the OGL is started creating clones. Actually, the first one wasn't Labyrinth Lord; it was a book called Osric. Osric was a first edition AD&D clone. Labyrinth Lord came next. Then you had things like Swords and Wizardry followed suit, and other. And there's a ton of them. If you go into like Amazon and type OGL, prepare to like basically
OSR.
OS. Yeah, it's late. Yeah, so if you go and type in OSR, thank you, Terry. Can you imagine if I was trying to do this by myself? I'd just be stumbling over words left and right. Um, you're just going to find page after page after page of all these games that are done by mainstream publishers, and you're going to find ones that are just, you know, uh, Grandma Moses put together. That it's a copy and paste job of another game, but hey, it's still legal in that regard. So anyway, OSR movement really grew. It went from the initial like 2 or 3 games that started to a bunch of things. So OSR falls under games like Mjork Borg, a Swedish death metal game that I've actually played on this stream. And if you go back into the videos, you can find it. We're all dressed in death metal makeup, and it was actually a really fun time. What else
Mutants and
is?
Masterminds.
Yeah, I don't know if that really falls under OSR though, but
Okay, that's right. I'm thinking OGL. Sorry.
yeah. See, and we're both
We're
confused
getting
here.
backwards now.
Yeah, and there's another game that I had. Oh, Lamentations of the Flame Princess,
Hmm.
another great game that's based on original D&D and OSE, which is basically the new hotness in the OSR these days. Their Kickstarter just did over $1 million for their like advanced OSE box set thingy, and old
Is
school
that
essentials.
is that the one we have books 1 through 5 already, and we were waiting for the other one?
No, that's actually a 5th edition clone.
Ah,
So
all right.
again, getting into clones and the OGL. So again, 5th edition actually had clones of itself based on the OGL. So sure, Wizards of the Coast wasn't making money off of any of these, but honestly, it really did good, I feel, for the brand. Because if you ended up playing one of the many different D&D 5 based games, you're going to be interested in playing D&D 5. So D&D 5 based games, Terry and I have actually played a few of them together, or at least one of them, I think, or a couple. So there was Stargate, the Stargate RPG. At least the newest version was D&D 5 based. There's a Lord of the Rings D&D 5 game. There is a game called Carbon 2185. I don't know, Terry, did you play that with me at all, or?
I have it, but I haven't played it with you.
Okay. And then I don't know if I just mentioned, did I say Hellboy? Did I mention
No,
Hellboy?
you did not.
Okay. So there's a Hellboy RPG. There's a D20 modern game that just is in the works. That's based on the 5th edition engine. So there's all of these things that third-party publishers have done with D&D 5, the mechanics, that just are pretty damn awesome. And going back to OSR, I need to give a shout out to my friend Jeff Talanian and his game Hyperborea, or what was originally called Astonishing Swordsmen and Sorcerers of Hyperborea. So
That's with the E, Hyperborea, right?
is it? Do I have to look at my bookshelf? Spinning around, spinning around. Hyperborea. Hyperborea. Oh, okay, There you go. Thank you. Yeah, I'm just too lazy to reach back on my bookshelf. So, anyway, so what's the problem, right? This all sounds great, right? This is amazing. All these games that are based on the D&D 5 engine and the OGL and the OSR, and there's all this cool stuff.
Before
But
you get to that, let me interrupt you.
okay,
Back in the early days of this, the people that put out the OGL said that one of the reasons they were doing it was to grow, to actually add things to what they were doing, because they were cannibalizing their own sales by doing supplements and adventures, and they wanted other people to create it to grow the audience so that more people would come into the game. And that was their original stated intent. So I wanted to put that out there so that you can see how much it's changed since then.
Oh yeah. No, and please feel free to interrupt. Like this is definitely
You're a talker, man. I got to interrupt you if you get on a roll. There's no stopping you.
yeah, I get in a roll and then I mispronounce words and I do all kinds of other things. So that's just the way it is. Uh, anyway, okay. So why is there a problem? All this great stuff I just mentioned, it sounds wonderful, right? So Wizards of the Coast is owned by Hasbro. It initially wasn't when they first bought TSR, the company that owned D&D, back in the 90s. They were a private company. Actually, they were owned by Peter Atkinson, who now is, I think, still owns Gen Con. And a kind of a stand-up guy, actually. Peter's I've met him on a few occasions at GaryCon. Really cool guy, but he is no longer affiliated with Wizards of the Coast. I think he sold that off a while back. But they also do Magic the Gathering. They do a bunch of other games. But anyway, so eventually Wizards of the Coast got bought by Hasbro. And Hasbro, as you know, is a major corporation. They are uh, they make everything from board games to toys. They own GI Joe. They own Transformers. They are pretty powerful, and their lawyers are even more powerful. They are almost godlike. That in crushing anything that gets in their path. So recently, they ended up firing a lot of their staff, getting rid of the CEO, getting rid of a lot of people higher in the power, and bringing in a bunch of people from Microsoft. So I think that should have been the first sign of the apocalypse that was going to happen. So the second thing is that Wizards of the Coast decided, or through Hasbro, that they were going to move the next edition of D&D, which they're calling D&D 1, uh, onto a platform where you have to pay a monthly subscription to play it. Now you can buy physical books, but you have to buy it through them. And they haven't really mentioned if those books that you need to buy through them are going to be something that you are only going to get a small piece of it, and then you have to buy more. Because what they're looking to do is microtransactions. So they're going to have a virtual tabletop. They're no longer using Roll20 to be their main platform.
Didn't they buy Roll20?
No, actually, someone else popular just bought Roll20, but I
Okay.
can't remember who it was. It wasn't WotC, because WotC is going to have their own VTT, and WotC being Wizards of the Coast. But what they want to do is do microtransactions. So let's just say you buy the D&D game and it comes with fighter, magic user, cleric, and thief, or rogue, or whatever the kids are calling it these
Want to
days.
play a paladin? Pay a fee.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, if you want to play paladin, you're going to have to buy that paladin class to add it to your thing. And then when you get to the virtual tabletop, you're then going to have things like you're going to buy your avatar. So you can have a generic, probably lame base model avatar that they give you. But if you want the cool 3D avatar elf with blonde hair and blue eyes and a flaming sword and all that, each of those things are going to basically be an additional fee. So they're looking at just not only selling you a game, but also picking your pocket on every possible little add-on that you could ever want.
We're guessing, by the way. This is supposition at this point.
Yes, it is. However, there is kind of a lot of data to back it up. I mean, these are things that they've talked about, or at least has been talked about in the thing. So why I'm going on about this? So a few days ago, and again, if you're a gamer, you've probably saw this leaked through Twitter or Facebook or pretty much any tabletop gaming site that talks about gaming, is the OGL 1.1 was leaked. And this is where it kind of gets a little messed up. So what they want to do is, I think that was the word deauthorize.
Yes,
Yes.
it would say they are no longer authorized, is how it was phrased.
Yeah. So anyone that's published under OGL 1.0, which or 1.0A actually is
1.0A and
yep,
probably 1.0 as well.
yep. And that's a lot of games. Like all those games that we talked about, and probably 50 to 100 more games we didn't. Those will, well, if it's where everyone's reading this right, you can go on YouTube and find 1,000 different channels talking about this as well. Um, if this is going to go as we think it is, games that we just talked about and the others will no longer be, the companies won't be able to publish more books and games based on it, meaning that the stuff that's already out there is out there. And I don't think they can particularly change that. However, let's just say for one of my favorite games, and I'm a publisher for that company, a third-party publisher, Dungeon Crawl Classics. So with that said, if they wanted to do a new module for DCC Dungeon Crawl Classics, they couldn't, because that version of the OGL would be completely gone. So, and again, there's a lot of people, a lot of companies that's their bread and butter, and if that goes, they're kind of screwed. Um, Now, granted, Wizards of the Coast can't come into your house yet and go through your shelves and take all your games that are based on the OGL or previous editions. Although I can kind of imagine a dystopian future where Wizards of the Coast stormtroopers will come barging into your home and collect all your books and burn them, like, in front of you or something like that, or kick your puppy or do whatever, because right now I'm so pissed at Wizards of the Coast I wouldn't put that past them. But if that happens the way it looks like it's written, yeah, the publishers are going to get screwed. Now let's actually turn up the juice the level a little bit. So they are going to offer you kindly a version of it called 1.1, OGL 1.1. However, if you sign this contract with them, they have to review all your stuff. Just anything that you do, they're going to review it. And they've also placed a bit about, now granted, sure, we shouldn't be writing books that are racist, homophobic, whatever, but we've also seen Wizards of the Coast go into huge tirades about things that you're just sitting there going, what the hell are you talking about? And that's concerning, because something that we might think is not particularly wrong or political or whatever Wizards of the Coast wants to define, they can say it is and kill your product right there. It either not get published, or at any time they can go back and pretty much say,
they can rescind the license.
I love it. So Werlin, who's in our chat, has said Hasbro owns Cobra, so they'd all have Cobra helmets. Oh, absolutely. I can, probably the new CEO of WotC from Microsoft probably is having a Cobra Commander helmet made for him now. And since Wizards of the Coast actually said that Cobra Commander couldn't use the hood in any of their publications, it would have to be the shiny one, right?
Maybe he'll have Clippy with him when he's doing that.
Clippy. Oh, the Microsoft Clip. Oh my God, yes, with a little Cobra badge on its on one of its little strands. So, but yeah, actually, that's actually very good. Yeah, Wizards of the Coast has become Cobra. It's kind of fitting, actually. Um, So where was I? Okay, so they can basically just shut you down whenever if they want to or whatever. And I'm sure it's going to get really political, like if they don't like you or something, they can just say, we don't want this. Okay, that's just that's just one layer of it. The second layer of it is that it states, and I don't have the document up in front of me, so I'm paraphrasing here, so I will definitely let you know that I am paraphrasing. One of the things they also want to do is that if, for example, you write something, your own intellectual property, it becomes the intellectual property of Wizards of the Coast. So let's just say, for example, I wrote this cool science fantasy setting and put a lot of work into it, and I have a bunch of stuff behind it, and just really unique races or species or whatever wizards are calling them these days, and settings and planets or whatever I'm doing. Wizards of the Coast can, without giving you any um, what you call it, any credit towards that or paying you or anything. They can just take it and use it in their publication. So,
I want to correct one thing that you said that's not right.
okay.
They're not claiming the IP or the copyright. They're claiming that they have a sub-license to it by the fact that you publish it under their license so they can use it. They're not taking it away from you. They're saying they have an exemption to use it for their own ends,
Okay.
which is different.
All right. So they're not basically picking cherry picking the best stuff that you've written, but they can. All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. But still, that's still kind of, I don't
It
know.
is. It's crap.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Adam, who's joined us, said, I don't know why WotC can't run like the Pokemon company does. Um, well, I don't know if you're Adam, if you're referring to like the way they do Magic, because they've also just recently got caught with Magic the Gathering. They had been selling off to other markets, which has been devaluing uh, basically the cards at stores. So retailers are getting screwed because of this whole other market that they're opening, which Wizards of the Coast, again, this is their this is what they're doing. They're screwing over the stores, because also when it goes to a online platform, mom and pop, brick and mortar stores that sell role playing games are going to get screwed too. So Wizards of the Coast is, I don't know what they're doing, and they're about to screw over a bunch of people in general. So let's see. We went over the major things of IP. Well, it's not really IP, Terry, as you corrected me. Also, if you, so here's a couple other things. You have to report to them any income over $50,000 that you
Right.
make as a publisher. If you make over $750,000, which I honestly, if there's a game publisher out there, I'm sure there is.
They claimed that there are 20 such at this time.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. But if that's the case, you actually have to pay them a 25%.
20 to 25% royalty fee
Yeah.
off of
So
the amount above $750,000.
that's a damn good chunk of change.
Could be. Yeah.
Yep. And also too with so also now if you're crowdfunding, uh
Kickstarter, that sort
yep,
of thing.
they want you to use Kickstarter because I get, because they're going to give you discounts on their royalties if you're using Kickstarters.
And Kickstarter has confirmed that part of the leaked document as being accurate from the discussions they have had with WotC.
Yeah. So again, Kickstarter is in kind of on the WotC bandwagon there, which is it is what it
I
is.
I think you may be applying more to the Kickstarter point there than may actually be warranted. What it may be is more along the lines of they negotiated a better deal because they don't see a way that they can get out of having to do what WotC says. So I don't know that I would apply that they're willing participants. They just maybe negotiated for a slightly less onerous deal.
All right. I just a couple of our listeners. So Adam again put in um, TCG and marketing more than anything. The hype is so much less for new products. In his humble opinion, or their humble opinion, sorry. Magic the Gathering being the example. Yeah. Magic the Gathering is a whole, and honestly, I'm not versed enough in TCGs to actually kind of go on that rant. But from what I mean, as a person who plays Magic, I think every 3 years is my cycle, and I get into it again. I go, "Wow, this is really cool and fun," and then I realize that I can't play worth a damn, and lose a lot of money and look stupid at drafts, and then I stop playing, and then I end up giving the cards to my son or someone else who can actually play them. Because also, I mean, one of the things with, and again, Adam, feel free to correct me here on this, or Terry. I don't know how well versed you are in Magic,
Not.
but once a set has run through its cycle and a new set has happened, a lot of those cards become invalidated, I believe. Um, and the only way you could play them out in the open or with other people, like at a store, is through what they call legacy games. Um, Otherwise, you kind of have to play the current set. So if you're doing a draft, you can't obviously have the previous set cards to open to do the draft. And I think in like tournament play, you can't particularly use anything like that. But also, it gets expensive. I mean, if you, I mean, honestly, I've opened up booster packs and gotten more land cards than I got anything valid to actually play. And the booster packs aren't particularly cheap either. I don't know how, and it's a lot of it's teenage kids that you see playing Magic the Gathering these days, and I'm sure their parents are none too happy with the amount of money they have to spend on their kids, or the allowances that are being spent to play the game. But like I said, I can't really beat my chest on Magic the Gathering too much, because while I have my own bias against Magic, um, it still it looks pretty bad. Weirlin had posted, didn't they do some sort of D&D Beyond only promotion for the Dragonlance product where they gave you yeah, so actually the Dragonlance sets, the book and the box set were done through the website. Although you can buy them through your brick and mortar game store, and you can get it on Amazon as well. Um, I can't remember. I mean, there might have been a promotion. I mean, right now I looked at the pricing there, and you can actually get those cheaper at 100 different places other than D&D Beyond. But first, and again, that's one of those things where I'm going to say, don't get me started, because I'm a Dragonlance fan from the initial core Chronicle books, and second edition material for Dragonlance is damn amazing. So if you are going to play Dragonlance, pick up the stuff from Drive Through RPG, because they have all the second stuff, and I think you can buy actually like print on demand versions of it, or go to eBay. Like right now, I will tell you, I'm not spending another dime on WotC. So I'll either go and buy stuff done by TSR and eBay, or I'll find other ways of getting it into my collection. Yes, the Margaret Weiss Productions 3E stuff that Cam Banks did with Margaret is pretty damn cool stuff, and I would definitely suggest that as well. I have those books as well somewhere in my home. You know, but Wizards of the Coast basically took the lore, took it away from Margaret Weiss and no, not Terry
Tracy
Hickman,
Hickman.
Tracy Hickman. Start with a T. I was close. So yeah, Tracy Hickman and Margaret Weiss were able to do a book, and that's after a lawsuit, because they didn't want them involved. Well, they wrote the novel, or they wrote like what, 2 or 3 books of it, and then completely just try to take it away. And good lawyers later, Wizards of the Coast basically had to allow them to. Oh, Gamers on Games. Hello, thank you. We are just trying to get a feel here. You'll probably see a lot of me doing a lot of well, I already did a lot of fist shaking, but but anyway, my last point I just want to make here with Wizards of the Coast is that the Dragonlance that Tracy and Margaret wrote is not the Dragonlance that Wizards of the Coast has published in 5th edition. They basically retcon the Kender. They retcon the world setting, for one. Now I know it's being done, I believe, in the so I think this takes place before the Chronicles, I think, or it's set in the world of the Chronicles, but just kind of before the Heroes of the Lance stuff basically kicked off. But they neutered it. I'll put it that way. It's very neutered. It doesn't have the kick. So again, if you're going to go ahead and play Dragonlance, just go back and get the second edition stuff. And if you're a 5e player, just convert it over. I will suggest one book, and this used to be free. I'm kind of rolling backwards here, and I'll probably fall off my chair. So look, I'm getting smaller. Here it is. On my full bookshelf, so I'll try not to get hit by the Tunnels and Trolls book that's on top of it, or I'll just take the Tunnels and Troll book out and put it back up. There we go. So this little gem here called Tasselhoff's Pouches of Everything. So this used to be free on Tabletop Nexus, and I went to Lulu and had a copy printed for myself. Neutered dragons are easier to fly. Yes, I guess so, Bryce. That is actually a good point. They become tamer and they don't bite as much. But anyway, this is a book that was written for 5th edition. It is, in my opinion, the book that WotC's Dragonlance should have been. So you can get a copy now, although you have to pay for it. And you can get it on what's that? DM's Guild. So it is not a WotC book. It is actually written by people over at Dragonlance Nexus. And if you have not been to Dragonlance Nexus and are a fan of Dragonlance Nexus, go there, because that is, I think, where the last of the Dragonlance fans live. But yeah, I was actually in a game store in Connecticut called Tabletop Shop up in Newington, Connecticut. And if you're in Connecticut, that is the store to go to. I get no kickbacks from them, but they are an awesome store. Anyway, one of the people who were the clerks, people behind the counter, like, it's late, my brain is frazzled, I don't even know what they're called anymore. But anyway, they were some guy came in and was talking about Dragonlance and was just sitting there going, hey, what about this book? What do you think? And the guy was just going off on all this misinformation. Like, he was just sitting there going, oh, well, it was written by the original people and this and that. And I just wanted to run up and smack the piss out of, yeah, exactly, of the guy behind the counter, and just tell the guy, look, don't buy this unless you want something to hold up a table that yes, actually, Gamers on Games, Connecticut does have some great shops. Another one I'll mention in a second, but yeah, it's not worth it. Their quality has gone down. I can look on my shelf here. The last thing I bought from them was Spelljammer, and I love Spelljammer. Again, if you're going to play Spelljammer, go back and buy the second edition stuff on eBay. It's beautiful stuff. Terry, I'm sorry.
You should have quoted Luke Skywalker to the clerk. Every single word of what you just said is wrong.
Ooh. Yes, and actually probably would have saved me the assault and battery charges.
Yeah, that would have been better.
Yeah, absolutely. But Spelljammer has controversies, and I'm not going to get into that here, just because to me it's I don't know, it goes one way or the other. However, the one thing about Spelljammer that pissed me the hell off is that, all right, you're expecting a game that's supposed to be about space travel on ships and possible space combat between ships. Guess what they didn't include in the Spelljammer box set? Space combat rules. There's none. Oops. Yeah, there's none. Like, honestly, if you want to have space combat in Spelljammer 5th edition, you need to just make it up yourself or find a third party, which I will highly suggest. If you're a 5th edition player, go buy third party products. Like, screw Wizards of the Coast and their crap. Like honestly, every game that they've put out recently, Ravenloft was disappointing. I think the last decent supplement they put out, in my opinion, was probably Curse of Strahd, I want to say, or Rime of the Frost Maiden actually was really good. But then after that, they just suddenly like their quality dropped. It's almost kind of like they were using an AI program to write their books. Like just going, write me a book about dragons and elves and dwarves and put combat in it. Or actually no, because if you look at Radiant Citadel or oh god, what's the Witchlight book, whatever that something of the Witchlight. Those actually have very minimal. Actually, Radiant Citadel has no combat in it, and the Witchlight book I think has it as optional.
Bryce says he's
Combat.
putting that into Chat GPL right now.
I take it that's a AI
It is.
writer. Yep. All right. Yeah. I mean, honestly, at this point, you could become Wizards of the Coast 2.0, man, and just like put out all your AI stuff. Just cut out anything that sounds combat-y.
We wandered into the games whole, but we probably should get back to talking about the OGL, since that's what we were actually talking about.
I know. But anyway.
Let me throw out some thoughts that I
Yeah,
have on
please.
this. The OGL 1.0A is a perpetual document. That's how it is in the thing there. And I listened to about an hour of a contract lawyer talking about that. And while, of course, lawyers vary in quality, this guy said that he believes that the Hasbro's leg to stand on is very weak on this. And that when somebody sues them, which will almost certainly happen if they try to be as draconian as they're going to be, that they're going to run into serious problems because this agreement in this form has been around since 1.0, which was 23 years, as I understand it, that this has been in force, and that the courts are very much against sudden changes to something that's been long existing, especially since the OGL starts with the phrase of something about compensation in compensation for or something like that. You'd have to look it up to see, but there's an exchange of value. They're getting more people creating things at Wizards of the Coast. In exchange, they're giving you this limited agreement to use these particular copyrighted items. And so he's of the mind that while they might succeed, their odds are very low when it finally gets to litigation.
All right. Yeah, I mean, my thought on this, and again, I'm just going on the passionate, emotional, non-logical.
Be passionate. I don't intend to give them one penny.
Let's see. WotC learns that they're. Oh yeah, no. There are so if you go into Twitter, and Twitter is the minefield of opinion. So I'll say that. I won't tell anyone to go to Twitter and look up information.
Don't do that.
Unless you're prepared to just hang on tight. But there's a lot of people who have already stated. So game companies, and I know Troll Lord Games has been very controversial lately, and I'm only mentioning them because of what they're doing, and that is basically they're doing a fire sale on all their 5e stuff. So, but I know there's a lot of other companies that have already talked about doing that, just because they feel dirty and they're like, oh, I don't want this on me anymore. But yeah, so you're probably going to see a lot of that. A lot of people who were 5e advocates, like who would, if you talked bad about 5e, they'd come to your house and like spray paint your wall with hate,
curb stomp you.
Yeah, are now basically going, hey, what other games are there out there that I can play? Which then kind of makes me feel that so one of the things that Wizards of the Coast has been really good about is they've been really inclusive over the past couple of years. So they've made statements for good or for bad that say that, hey, look, we are open to various communities, LGBTQ. We are open to And that's that, POC, and that's great. I mean, honestly, there needs to be that message out there. But right now, I'm starting to feel it's only out there because they wanted to monetize those communities, which, if you're going to be open to a marginalized community, um, be open to them, do things for them. So, and I'm not trying to like say anything. So Solarian Games, so one of the companies that I'm part owner of, we do Top Secret New World Order and a few other games. We actually recently, over this past year, have actually given out free copies of our game. There was a trans in Texas movement that happened earlier this year, and we just basically donated our game Top Secret New World Order to that bundle, right? So, but we're not looking to monetize off of those communities. Um, you know, we don't we would like their money, but honestly, that wasn't the point. And this is what I'm feeling about WotC too, is that all that love and inclusion and during Pride Month, all the flags and everything that go up, how much is that actually just pandering to get money more than actually being inclusive?
I'm not sure what their motives are. I'm not paying close enough attention to what they're doing. I agree that those communities need to be supported. I don't know what WotC's motives are in doing anything that they do, and I I'm hesitant about assigning motives to those that I don't know what they're doing
Mm,
and why.
fair enough. Fair enough. So, all right. Well, I'm basically, I think I've run out of steam on
You've
OGL.
started right the fist again. Ugh.
Yep. And we already 48 minutes, and I want to get to the second part. Oh, we don't have to make that too long. But is there anything else you wanted to say on OGL before we go into the second segment?
The most important thing is that the final text has not come out. We don't know what it's actually going to say when it comes out. Maybe this leaked document is something that's been put out by somebody that's against it, that wants to twist their arms behind their back to see if they'll back down. So until they actually publish it, we're all guessing. That's all I want to say.
Yep, absolutely. And I am just a ball of rage sometimes when it comes to certain topics. And
No
I
worries.
yeah, I've been angry at WotC. Well, so just to give some reference here is that excuse me, I run a game roughly every Wednesday. Lately, it's been a little less, but holidays and all that stuff
Mhm.
going on. But we do a lot of 5e in that game, but we've actually kind of weaned off of WotC things. So we are running Keep on the Borderlands, which is a TSR module, but we're also running the version from Goodman Games that converted to 5e. And we're not running 5e from Wizards of the Coast. We're running a game called Into the Unknown, which is a third-party rewrite of 5th edition to play like BX D&D, the
Right.
basic D&D. So it's we are playing 5e, but we're not particularly doing anything from Wizards of the Coast. And honestly, um I'm hoping to move the group to other games, once Keep on the Borderlands is done, which probably won't be for a very long time. But
We've only just gotten to the keep. We've still got a lot of things to do.
Sturges.
You tried to kill us off with that flock of sturges. You're going to
Yeah,
get us.
yeah. All right. So, what I wanted to actually talk about next, and I know I've taken up close to an hour on this rant on the OGL, but I wanted to offer three games that I think would be great alternatives. So, if you're kind of in that same mood of me, of like, WotC, you're not playing fair, so I'm going to give my dollars somewhere else. So, I just want to throw out three games. um, I don't know. If I put seagulls into a game, they'd probably be worse because they'd probably be blood sucking seagulls or
That would be awesome, though. The flock of seagulls coming in and going, mine, 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 mine.
the band just appearing on a hill somewhere as you guys are making your way up to the keep.
Ooh.
Yeah, I couldn't play the music. Well, we don't stream it, so I guess I could play the music in the background. But anyway, So let's go ahead and share screen with the magic of share screen. All right. And let's do this. So we're gonna move ourselves over here
Yep.
and put this out. Okay, great. So one of the games that I personally really enjoy, and this is on the fourth edition. So first edition, which was also called as, I think it was referred to as the Naked Dwarf syndrome game, because it was, the way it was set up is that dwarves in the game, if not wearing armor, were pretty much indestructible.
They're pretty
Um,
tough.
yeah, and they've changed it a lot. Fourth edition is actually a really good version. I believe I think it's back to Games Workshop. We'll have to check, but I know second edition, which is also a really good version. Actually, that's my favorite version of it. Was done by Black Industries, who also partnered with Green Ronin, who also do Mutants and Masterminds. And it's a really good edition. I think you can still buy it online, but anyway, very good. Third edition, I'm not going to pick on it too much because third edition was actually done by a good friend of mine, Jay Little, who designed it, who actually then took that design and did the Star Wars Edge of the Empire and all the new Star Wars games with it. And I think the generic version of it's called Genesis. But anyway, it's a little too heavy on the cards and moving pieces. It plays more like a board game than it does an RPG. But hey, if you want a game that you have to carry around in a giant fish and tackle box and love Warhammer, it might be worth the money that you might have to pay for it on eBay or something like that. But fourth edition is the newest version. You can pick up a starter set that actually comes with enough to play the game itself. But it's I'm a lover of the game. I own all editions. I used to have third. I sold off all my third edition stuff. But yes, the Grim World of Perilous Adventure. So this is
It's pretty
more.
grim. I'm going to confess, it's pretty grim.
It's very medieval. So I would say it feels a little like pre-Elizabethan, and because there's gunpowder and there's more. It's a little bit more modern than it is D&D, where it's just like, what, gunpowder? You can't do that in my game. Um, but and again, it runs off a different system, so yes, you would actually have to learn a different system. But let me just kind of go over a couple of cool things here as I scroll through.
While
Oh,
you're scrolling, I'm going to add this in for you here.
yeah.
The way the setting is written, it's a fairly grim setting and a fairly dark setting. The way you played it with us was less grim and less dark, so it can be flavored by the GM, but as it's written, it's it's a fairly dark setting as far as that if you go by the official setting.
Yes, it is very dark. And also, if you're not, this is actually done by Games Workshop and Cubicle 7, so it has gone back to its original people. Look at I mean, the artwork here is beautiful, and
Mhm.
it's amazing artwork. But it's a little different. So where D&D, you go ahead and have to pick a race and a class. All right, some similarities here. So, but you pick a race. The races in here are halfling, dwarf, elf, and human. And but you pick a career. And the great thing about it is that you have to go through your career and make your way through multiple iterations of this career. So basically, you kind of level up in the career, and then you get to a certain point and you can pick a new career, right? And Gamers on Game, we will talk to you later. It was great to have you on. All right. And I think we'll be seeing you at TotalCon. So bonus. Happy New Year to you too. So and then you can choose a new career, and that's how you make your way up. You just choose these careers. And I'm trying to scan forward here because there's a lot of things. So again, beautiful artwork. You have your elves, and
Just
different
remember, as you're scanning this down, you're showing the entire book to everybody on the
true.
interwebs.
Yeah, I understand. Well, it's not like they're sitting here going, I'm going to copy that and then put
They're
it
busy
on.
copying it right now. Cut and paste, cut and
Yeah.
paste.
Oh, here we go. Class and careers. So this is some of the cool stuff here. So like, your careers, um, there's like apothecary. Here's your career path, and then basically you collect all these things as you go through your career, and make your way up, and then there's careers that you can jump off into other ones. So you have your engineer, lawyer, because everyone wants to play lawyer, nun, physician, and it's just a lot of medieval classes. You have a priest, scholar. Magic works a little bit too, a little differently than D&D. And the great thing about magic from Warhammer is that there's chaos, and as you cast spells and as you do things, chaos can basically tackle you and do horrible things to you. And now we're not just talking about, oh, it makes me a little bit more evil. It can deform you, and it can do other horrible things. But and again, you can see here as where D&D has what, like, 6 classes and then like some subclasses behind it. There are so many careers that you can go
Hmm.
to, and then you have advanced careers. So once you're done with the base careers, you can go on to like other things that are just, oh, road wardens are fun. um oh god, was it, oh, the rat catcher, you get a
Yeah.
dog with that career, which I think is really fun. But oh, grave robber. So again, just a lot of witch, cavalryman, there's a lot of different things that you can play. um so let me see if I can just get to a character sheet here at the end, so I can kind of show you just a little bit about. There we go. There's character sheets. So you have your characteristics, weapon skill, I think it's ballistic skill, strength, toughness, intelligence, agility, dexterity. Um, oh, that's initiative, and fellowship. So again, little different than D&D, a lot more characteristics. It's all based on percentile, so you have to roll percentiles in order to play the game. You have fate, which basically allows you to kind of pull actions away, like, oh, I messed up. Oh, I'm going to use my fate to like redo that. Your skills, again, are all based on percentile, and you get talents and other things that help boost your skills. Um, it is a tough game though, because it's percentile based and not based on a d20. So fifth edition, you get so many high bonuses that even at first level, it's really hard to miss or do something that you don't want to do. But this is, you're gonna fail a lot more times than succeed in Warhammer in your beginning career. And again, there's no death saves here. This is like, you can die and roll up a new character, and rolling up a new character is kind of hard and annoying and tough. So it's something you probably don't want to do, which is good because D&D has pretty much set the expectation that you are invincible, you are a superhero, and in combat you don't need to run away from anything. Which in earlier editions of D&D, that wasn't the case.
It totally wasn't the case in the earlier editions.
You ran. You saw something you couldn't fight, you disappeared. But I think it's realistic enough to say that you need to leave a fight, or you may not want to pick a fight if you don't have to. There is multiple, and the nice thing about fourth edition is compatible with second and first. So if you have any modules or the campaign books from those editions, you can just use them. Any Terry, you want to add anything for your experience with Warhammer?
My experience with Warhammer was a fairly light one since you were running the game. And I played it years ago, but it was one of the earlier renditions. I would say that if you'd have been less lenient about the things that had happened, a lot of the characters would have died in that first brawl that we had, that we thought was a fairly innocent brawl. I don't think we'd have made it out of that.
Fair enough. Yeah, in one shots, I just hate killing off people early on, just because it's like, well, what do you do now? But it is a deadly game, and but worth picking up. So again, if you're looking for a fantasy alternative to D&D,
Mhm.
and like a little bit more grim and gritty, Warhammer is for you.
And if you're not one of the fan favorites of, having the characters die so much, as the game master, you can go ahead and manipulate things a little bit so that it's not quite as deadly for the player characters. So it's not like you have to go by the rules like any other role playing game. You don't have to be that tough.
And if you're part of that modern group of gamers who like to do the I'm playing a barista and I don't like combat, there's a lot of things to do because this, like I said, this is based on medieval Western Europe, Germany, and for most part.
Mm-hmm.
But there is kind of versions of Spain, Russia, the Middle East, and everything in this game. But heck, you can run a tavern and have adventures in a tavern, and it can get pretty interesting. So a lot of political intrigue can be done in this game without much combat. So definitely take a look at it. It's worth it. There is a starter set which you can get for I think $25 that will give you enough of the world setting to really make it worthwhile.
It's a solid game.
Absolutely. So I'm going to go to one of my favorite games of all time, RuneQuest.
Which
So
edition is this?
this is the newest one. So this is, and it's actually by Chaosium because Chaosium took back the license. It actually had been floating around with a couple of different companies for a while.
I remember having the white cover. The first edition is where I learned to play that game.
Yep. So this game was published in the late 70s by Greg Stafford, who had written a board game based in his world of Glorantha. I think it's called like Black Bear or something. If anyone in the chat remembers what it's called, please feel free to speak up. I actually had the pleasure of gaming and knowing Greg Stafford back in the 80s. I got a couple of books my copy of Prince Valiant was actually given to me by him and signed. And I don't think I never played RuneQuest with him. I've actually played more Call of Cthulhu and Cyberpunk with him. But Greg was definitely a really cool guy, and he passed away, I think, like 5 to 7 years ago, and definitely it was a hardship on the gaming community. So Greg was an awesome man. RuneQuest is an awesome system. Him and Steve Perrin wrote the rules to the original. And you can actually still get the original through Chaosium. They did a reprint of the second edition, the white book that Terry's talking about. I don't know if
I can't remember the color. It's been so long since I played it that I can't even really remember that much about what it looked like, the book.
I have a copy. I don't know if I can reach it. Yeah, I'm not going to try because I'll yank my computer off the table. But yeah, it had a picture of a female gladiator fighting some sort of weird owl bear looking thing on the cover, if I remember correctly. But anyway, it's been around since the 70s. This is also another game that uses a percentile system for its resolve. So Gloriantha is the core setting, although I believe third edition, which was published by Avalon Hill, had a fantasy Europe setting in the deluxe box set that was made available for it. And I'm just trying to see, is that on my shelf that's reachable? No, obviously not, because that would be too easy. Anyway, yeah, Avalon Hill published third edition, fourth edition. Through fourth edition was published by Mongoose Publishing, a company, I think they were Mythic something or other, took over for fifth and sixth edition, and then Chaosium came back. This is theoretically the sixth edition or seventh edition, actually, of RuneQuest, but they don't refer to it as RuneQuest 7. So it's, but it is, I would say, the third edition of RuneQuest by Chaosium. Anyway, percentile based, it's actually based off something called basic roleplay, which is also the game mechanics for Call of Cthulhu. Yes, actually, there was a 13th Age version of Glorantha that was published, I want to say about within the past 10 years, maybe even past 5 years. But it is definitely a great world. It's Bronze Age, so I should put it out there. So if you're used to D&D and you're high fantasy, You're not going to get that with RuneQuest. RuneQuest is Bronze Age. It is very tribal, very primitive. You're basically looking at two different factions. At least they focus on two different factions in it. The Lunar Empire and the Sathar, or I think those are from Star Frontiers. Anyway, it starts with an S. I can't really remember, but the artwork here also gives it away that it's definitely less medieval and more kind of your, I want to say, pseudo Conan-y sword and sorcery sort of
That's
tribal
fair.
look. Yeah. But the artwork here is beautiful. I mean, the first edition, the second edition did not have
No,
cool artwork as this. Religions are referred to as cults. So there are many different cults within RuneQuest. Runes are very important. And the one thing about RuneQuest too is that magic is everywhere. So it's not like, oh, I'm a sorcerer and I'm the only one who has magic. Nope, your grandma who's sweeping the front steps of their hut has probably enough magic to kick your ass all over the street and back
that's
again.
grandmothers everywhere.
Well, that is true. Here's some more just kind of really very cool artwork related to it. But yes, so magic is some magic is rune magic. Some magic is sorcery. There are other types of magic. There's fighting magic. So your warrior that goes out onto the field doesn't have to rely on Merlin to go ahead and bless the blade in order to fight. That that fighter probably has blade sharp or another spell that they can cast on their own weapon before they go into combat. So there's a lot of magic, but it's not magic in the sense that you think of like, I'm going to cast fireball or I'm going to shoot a magic missile. It's uh, very primitive magic. Let's see if I can get to see if I can get to the magic section here. I just passed something. Oh, these are skills, like Earth Tongue and all that. Combat is deadly. I will put it out there. If you think that Warhammer combat is deadly, RuneQuest is even more deadly. You have very limited hit points and a good hit. Oh, and the criticals in this are brutal too. Like you can end up having decapitation. Your character can now be called one-armed Willie because their arm was chopped off in the last combat. So it can get nasty. And and again, sorry for anyone who has lost their arms in combat. Um, I'm not making fun of you. It's just explaining that yes, you can lose it. So detect life, detect magic, dark wall, detect traps. So wow, some of these newer ones actually kind of dispel magic. What the hell? This is D&D. Um, fanaticism, but you're not going to find anything like death touch or anything like that in the spells in RuneQuest. I'm just going to pop down to find a character sheet because I think that's just the best way to kind of explain a game. If there's a character sheet, there's an index. Um, aha, character sheet. Yeah, I forgot. This thing's like the 80-page character sheet. So combat. So again, armors, and I think this is the same way in RuneQuest, not RuneQuest, Warhammer too. Is that combat isn't just like I roll to hit an AC and hit a certain area. Um, you actually either can aim or you can roll randomly to see where you hit. And so if you do enough damage to an arm, that arm's, like I said, disabled. It's gone. Um, it's not there anymore. And if you're going to go out without armor and think you're getting into combat, that's probably not a good choice. Um, you have rune points here depending on your religion or your cult that you belong to. Here's your hit point chart, magic point. So again, magic isn't just randomly like, oh, I cast it and then I forget the spell. You actually have points that you can put into magic in order to cast it. Your stats are pretty D&D-ish. If you're a fan of Call of Cthulhu, you can actually import sanity rules into
Ooh,
RuneQuest and let the fun fly with that. Other games that use this system besides Call of Cthulhu, Stormbringer is a game if you're a fan of Elric and the Melnibonéan mythos.
I think he pronounced it Mnemonaean. It doesn't
Really?
look like it. It doesn't look like it's spelled. I heard that the author had said that's how it was pronounced. Mnemonaean.
Oh,
Go
that
figure.
yeah, that sounds horrible. So okay, so if you're a fan of Elric and the world he is in, definitely worth picking up. And another great game, which they actually stole some stuff from. You can't really steal from your own company, but Passions, which are also used in the Pendragon RPG.
Mhm.
And if you want a real authentic, like I want to play a King Arthur game that feels like Le Morte Arthur or any of the Arthurian legends, oh, there you go. That is the book to own. It is an amazing game. Again, Greg Stafford, wrote it and put the magic into it. And yeah, so if you want to explore the Arthurian legends,
It's a
you pick
fun game to play.
absolutely. And if you have the bazillion dollars to buy the book, not the Pendragon's not that bad, but if you want the great Pendragon campaign source book and adventure book, you can. I mean, honestly, a couple of friends of mine are playing the game they've been playing like I think every other Saturday for the past 2 years now, and they're still not through it. It's like a game that if you really want a campaign that's going to last you for a couple of years, the Great Pendragon campaign is one to pick up. And here's your skills. Also, the interesting thing about skills, so with Warhammer, you have experience, and that you're going to put that into your career, and that's going to raise your skills. So the interesting thing about any basic role playing game, RuneQuest especially, so whenever you use a skill, you see there's a little checkbox here on the character sheet. Whenever you use a skill in the game, you put a check next to it. And at the end of the session, the game master is going to have you make a roll against the stat or the skill. If you succeed, and I can't remember, is if you, I think it's if you succeed with the skill, you actually gain points to put into it to raise it.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, if you fail it, then no, you don't advance in that skill. So it's kind of neat. It's not level based. It's just basically you if you use a skill, you're going to get to and this is really cool too because you can attempt to do fast talk even though you may not have a skill in it, and you can raise it just by simply practicing it, right? So a nice learning curve to it. And then it gets really crazy here because you start getting into your family and are they dead and alive, and yeah, it gets a little much. But RuneQuest is a great game. I'm going to suggest the newer version if you're really kind of into bells and whistles. If you want to play a version of it that is bare bones, I would definitely go on Chaosium's site because you can still get the reprint of the second edition, which is the one I started with. And if you can find it on eBay for less than $100, I would suggest the RuneQuest Deluxe set by Avalon Hill because that comes with Glorantha and Western, like Fantasy Europe. So if you're not really into the whole tribal thing, you can actually go in a different direction and play more of a Lord of the Rings sort of game with the system. Terry, any words on RuneQuest before I move on to the last one?
No, I think you covered it really well.
Thank you. All right, so that was RuneQuest, seventh or third or whatever you want to call it. The last one I want to talk about is Dungeon Crawl Classics. All right, so this is a game that was done by the OGL, and I think actually if you go into, and the artwork here is amazing. Most of it was done by Doug Kovac, who is again an amazing author, not author, but artist. And Errol Otis. There's a bunch of people here that were part of this. Let's see, Travis Allison, Todd Katz, Doug Kovacs, Harley Stroh, Dieter Zimmerman, cover art, Doug Kovacs. Here's the artist, Jeff D, Jeff Easley. I mean, some of these people go back to TSR, like first edition AD&D. So you're getting a lot of classic artists who do artwork here. But there's an OGL statement here. So the game itself, and actually, I'm going to take my lesson here and go to the character sheet. I think there's one in the back. Let's see. A lot of advertisements in the back. Also, Joe Goodman's a good guy, and I will say that I am a third-party publisher for Dungeon Crawl Classics. So if you want a game that's like Hyperborea for DCC, find my Tales from the Fallen Empire setting, and that will. I don't know if I'm listed here in the giant list of. Probably not, because I'm not that cool. But let's see. Oh yeah, no, there I am. Tales from the Fallen
Yay!
Empire. Yeah, so that is my game, a supplement. Actually, one of the early supplements for DCC and one of the first full campaign settings for DCC. So pick it up. You can get it on Amazon or Drive Through RPG. Let's see here if I can find a character sheet. Terry, have you played DCC before?
No, but I supported the Goodman, one of the most recent Goodman Games Kickstarters, and I believe I picked it up as an add-on to it.
Okay. Yeah,
I hadn't been familiar with it before.
Yep. I'm not particularly finding a character sheet. I don't know. Let's see. Maybe they did the thing where the character sheet is in the character generation portion. If not, I will just go ahead and explain the game because I know it pretty well and can. Let's see here. Again, art is pretty damn amazing. All right. So it's kind of like playing D&D. I will say that because it is based on the OGL. A few of the scores have changed compared um, to D&D. So let me see here if we can get to characters. The game starts at 0 level and goes up to 10th. That is the max level for the game. 0 level's interesting because they like to do what's called a funnel. So basically, every player plays 4 different first level or 0 level characters with one piece of equipment, and you all go on an adventure, and the one that lives becomes your first level character. So, and that you can randomly roll them. It's really neat. Purple Sorcerer, which is a website you can go to, you can generate characters, 0 level funnel characters. Because it's OGL, a lot of the content is open, so it can be just published out there. So, and Purple Sorcerer is a partner of Goodman Games, so I would check them out. But anyway, so here's the thing on 0 level characters. Just trying to get to a point. So alignment, it uses the three prong alignment, which is lawful, neutral, and evil. Not evil, chaos or chaotic. Which is actually, and again, just going into preference, I prefer that instead of having the lawful good, lawful evil, lawful, just because I think it gives a lot more flexibility for your character. It uses experience points. Classes, you have your cleric. However, some interesting things about the cleric in Dungeon Crawl Classics is that they do have the ability to heal without actually having to cast a spell, and it's kind of based on the alignment. So a good cleric can heal a good character or a lawful character. However, trying to heal a chaotic character, well, that may not work as well, and no healing may come. And again, certain things can be taken care of, like a disease or paralysis or things like that, based on that lay on hands mechanic. And it is die based, so you roll a d12, and depending on what you roll, You can do things. Also, here, spell check. That's one thing I should mention too. It's for wizards and for clerics. So here's the thing. So in basic D&D, if you cast a spell, you forget it. Or I think in fifth edition you have spell slots. So you can cast as many a level of that spell. But in earlier editions, the Vancian magic is once you cast a spell that you memorized, it is gone from your head and you have to rememorize the spell. So you do have to memorize spells for clerics and wizards in DCC. However, you have to roll to cast your spell. So here's the neat thing is that for the most part, if you roll an 11 or higher, you keep your spell. However, rolling lower on that level is you're going to get your basic spell off. However, with bonuses and everything else, you can roll into the 30s on a spell check. So I've actually had a friend of mine in a play test of my setting. They were doing a ship to ship battle, and my friend goes, "Oh, I'm going to go ahead and cast a fireball at the sails, so we can get away." He ended up critting, and then with all his bonuses, ended up rolling like a 35 or something on that fireball spell check. He pretty much set the entire ship on fire. Like that's how powerful that spell got because of spell checks. So with clerics, healing, like you can see here, you roll high, you're going to get a lot of dice to do healing on. It's pretty cool. And some of the gods for the setting. Thieves, thieves have actually a really cool. So everyone gets luck as a stat, and the one thing that's awesome about luck is if you mess up a roll, you can actually burn that stat and change the course of your luck. However, the only class that can regain that luck are thieves and actually halflings, and we'll talk about that when we get into the races. So um, thieves can actually regain their luck. They can burn it and then get it back at the end of the evening. They never permanently lose it, as where other classes do. Backstabs do triple damage as normal, and then they have all the abilities that you would have for a thief's. Climb walls and forge documents and things like that. And based on the your alignment, uh, your thieving skills are a little different. So your lawful thieves may not be really good at backstab, as where your chaotic thieves are really good at backstab, right? So again, your alignment falls into that. Going into the next class is warrior. Warriors are cool. So in D&D, sure, different warrior classes get different abilities. Uh, DCC just has the warrior, but you get a couple of things that are really cool. So one is Mighty Deed of Arms. Mighty Deed of Arms is an additional roll that you make along with your combat roll. And if you want to do stunts like swing from a chandelier or trip somebody or do things like that, um, your Mighty Deed of Arms will determine that by that die roll. Initiative gets to add their class level to they get to add their class level to initiative to basically make themselves a lot quicker. And they also at certain levels get extra action dice, which means that they're rolling additional attacks as they go up at higher levels with additional action dice. There's crit tables in here too that not only give you that, hey, I'm doing double damage, also gives you that effect of like Warhammer and RuneQuest of like decapitating or cutting someone's jugular vein or chopping off a limb. So combat's a lot more fun and a lot more dynamic than D&D. And then the last of the classes here that I've mentioned is Wizard, where basically wizards get to, well, one, they can get a familiar as any wizard could, and also two, based on their roles, their spells can just go crazy. Um, like basic D&D, races or classes. So you have dwarf, who are basically fighters. They get a shield bash ability. Elves are kind of fun because they get magic and fighting ability. They can wear armor while casting spells, unlike wizards who cannot. And they get all the cool elf things, immune to sleep and immune to charm and heightened senses and so on and so forth. Halflings are kind of cool because one, halflings get that luck ability of thieves. So if they burn their luck, they can regain it. However, halflings can also give their luck to other party members. So that is another ability that is really awesome. And then they just kind of get it back after they do their halfling thing, right? So that's the basics of the class. There's some, there's some skill use that you can do within DCC. It's mostly just kind of things like skill checks, right? I want to do something. You're just going to roll an attribute to do it. Combat's pretty straightforward. I just want to give a couple of looks here. Fumbles. So basically, you also, if you fumble, roll a 1. You have a chance of dropping your weapon or attacking other party members. Here's the stuff for critical. So let's take a look at warriors. Let's look at higher level warriors. So skull crushed like a melon. Inflict an additional 3d12 damage with the strike. The foe must make a fortitude save or die in 1d3 rounds. So yeah, you're not talking about, oh, I hit them and now they need to make their death save. No, they're pretty screwed. So, and then you got mounted combat. There's just so many different things in here. Spell checks I talked about. Let's look here at one of the spells. I want to see if I can find fireball, and kind of show you fire resistance. ESP. Are these in alphabetical order? Maybe not. Maybe they're by level. I just want to find one here that might be kind of interesting to look at. I know we're already kind of an hour and a half in, but this is the last one, I promise.
Sure.
Let's see here. Why can't I find anything fun? All right, that's well, these are all fun, but sword magic. All right, what was that? Water breathing is not fun. Right magic, no, not really. Control fire, control ice. All right, so let's use control ice, right? So you have your basics here. Um, there's corruption. So basically, like if you misfire, caster is encased in ice and immobilized. Takes 1d3 rounds to free the caster from his icy cocoon. So these are things that happen if you mess up on a roll. You need a 12 to not lose the spell. But then as you roll higher, the basic level, caster blasts a 40 foot in diameter with frigid sheet, doing 2d6 plus class level damage. All right, that's just your basic. If you get higher here, caster creates a vicious ice storm that affects an area 1 mile in diameter for each level the caster possesses, inflicting 6d10 plus class level points of damage on creatures within the area of effect. So you just went from a 40-foot diameter to a mile-wide snowstorm. That's basically killing almost everything in its path. So magic is pretty damn powerful in DCC, and it's fun. Like I said, it's very dynamic. It's never the same spell, twice. And monsters are interesting. They also get special abilities as well, um, and they're very hard to kill at that. So it's definitely a challenge. You got your pig face orc, which I really love here. But anyway, all in all, this game is OGL, and this is one of the games that may be affected depending on Wizards of the Coast's decision when it finally happens. So it's it's definitely worth picking up. All right. So I think we're already at over an hour and a half here, and I kind of was just like, oh, we're just going to be on for like an hour, maybe 45 minutes. So it just shows what happens when I get on a roll here. So I'm just going
A
to bring
moment
this
of
back.
rage.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, any if I had any closing words, and I'll turn it over to Terry for closing words. But again, to be fair, yes, we don't know exactly what's going on with the OGL, so it's all speculation at this point. Although we kind of, have a feeling what might be going on. So definitely take it with a grain of salt. Don't listen to anyone on Twitter, and just if you're looking at YouTube channels like mine or other people, just make sure that you're also just being subjective about the information that's going on there. Um, as far as the games, yeah, if D&D is the only game on your shelf, shame on you. Go out and definitely pick up other games. I know that Terry and I are both gaming addicts and probably need help and interventions and clinics, possibly rehabs, based on it.
There's a
But
12-step program.
yep, absolutely. But honestly, it's great. Your players are going to have a blast just playing new things, right? So, not saying that if you're just like, hey, I play D&D 5, then go out, take a look at your third party publishers and see what they have to offer, because you're going to find some fun stuff. I'm just kind of done with Wizards of the Coast. So that's why I'm saying that. But also, Warhammer, RuneQuest, Dungeon Crawl Classics, pick it up on PDF. Go out there and see if you really like it. Run it with your friends, and you might find something that you enjoy to do more. So, Terry.
If you're looking for something that's like D&D, maybe Pathfinder Second Edition is your cup.
Oh yeah, tell us about Pathfinder. Preach it.
I'm actually waiting for you to run it. I've got some books on my shelf, but I can't say that I'm an expert at it. But it looks like it's as solidly put together as anything anyone could hope for. It's definitely got as much source material as you could dream of having been created for that universe.
Yeah, and so first edition has a lot of a lot of the problems a 3.5 had. It just after at certain levels it becomes unmanageable, to be honest. But second edition actually cleaned it up a lot more. There's a action economy that they built into it that actually makes the combat incredibly fun, and definitely worth playing. But yeah, Pathfinder is probably, I would have to say, the flagship OGL product if you really think about it. So, and honestly, you can probably go on legally to their SRD for Pathfinder and get the entire rule set for first edition, including like Unchained and all the monster manuals and everything, because they made that content very open. Actually, you can even just download apps that have the entirety of the Pathfinder rule system on it. So there's no excuse. I can't afford it. Yes, you can. It's free. Just like if you're gonna get
About
on.
maybe once or twice a year, Humble Bundle has something where you can buy a bunch of Pathfinder related stuff, and it comes with the rules set and it comes with other stuff. So you can always find it on the cheap.
Oh yeah, and with most of those bundles, if you spend a certain amount, they'll actually send you a hard copy of usually the basic set or one of the books.
I got the Beastry and the core rule book by doing that.
Yep, I got the core rule book, and I did their Starfinder. So they also have a space game.
I got that one too.
Yep, so I got the basic set. We'll talk about space games a little bit later, but or in another episode.
They've got
But
both of them have starter boxes, and I've got both of those as well. And that's a good way, if you're not really familiar with it, you could dip your toe in.
and I will say that is the best value. So I will do my last shake my fist at WotC, and I promise we'll get off. But so if you go ahead and buy the D&D starter set, any of the starter sets, you're going to get a module. You're going to get 5 pre-generated characters. You're not going to get any way to learn how to make characters. You'll get some rules, the basic SRD rules on it. If you buy, and you'll get like a little fold-out map thing, right? If you buy the Pathfinder basic box set, you are going to get a hard like dry erase. Oh, I think Terry's going to go grab it. But you're going to get a hard dry erase map. You're going to get punch out characters. Yes. So you're going to get miniatures. You're going to get a rule book that actually allows you to create characters. I think up to 3rd level.
You're going to see if I can bring in the box includes up here close enough to read.
Yeah, 72-page Heroes Handbook, 88-page Game Master Guide, 4 pre-made heroes, 100 character and monster pawns, game reference cards, and a complete set of dice. So that's what comes in the box set. And honestly, it is beautiful. Like, honestly, you can open it and have tons of fun with that particular box set for many, many, many sessions, and have minis that you could bring into other games. It's a value. If you're going to buy something for 5th edition from Wizards of the Coast, I would at least suggest their D&D Essentials box set, because it comes with the GM screen, and it comes with like some minis and some stuff that you can pop out. Oh, there's the dice. Yep. So again, oh, and yep, the counters that, or not counters, but the stands, tokens. Yep. And yeah, it also, like I said, comes with cards too. So if you want to, like to learn how to play the game, it is an amazing set and an amazing value. And I would just support Paizo if you want to support. Yep, there's the books.
Good stuff. Characters. Yeah. All the stuff in here.
Yep.
All good stuff.
Support Paizo. That's what I'm saying. But anyway, I'm going to close now and say goodnight. And we will hopefully be back on with a shorter show and less rants, and maybe even get into talking about some gaming at some point.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. You have a good night. Thank you for watching, and we are out.